Hey guys, it's Mrs. Hawk. I just wanted to run through the PowerPoint presentation for the epic poetry. This is something that you should be looking at through the rest of the week. There is an outline that you need to follow that goes along with it as well. So make sure you're following the outline as you fill out or make sure you're following the PowerPoint as you fill out the outline. That is an actual assignment. The other assignment too that you need to work on is there is a quiz that goes over this epic poetry information along with some of the information about the Greek gods and goddesses, as well as a flip grid that I want you to complete. So just kind of keep looking at Canvas. Everything is going to be due Thursday night by midnight, just because we are off in school on Friday. So I won't be checking email or doing assignments on Friday. So, but let's talk about the introduction to the Odyssey, and let's discuss a little bit of epic poetry here. So this follows straight through your outline, but a characteristic of an epic hero: very clever, very cunning, proud. They're a great leader, brave, courageous. All of these encompass our main character, Odysseus. Now it's called the Odyssey because Odysseus, it's an abbreviation of the title of the Odyssey came from Odysseus's name. So we read a little bit of the background information about that last week on where Odysseus comes into play in the story. Okay, so now, epic heroes, they also possess supernatural abilities. You'll see Odysseus doing quite a bit of things in the story that no human being can do. They're supernatural abilities. He's very loyal to his family. Odysseus goes on a 10-year war in the Iliad, which is the Trojan War. And after that, he goes on a 10-year journey home. So total, he's gone from his family for 20 years, but he still claims that he is loyal to his family, loyal to the Greek nation that he's a part of, and he is also loyal to the gods. So, but the gods typically interfere in his life. That's very important when it comes to the text. He takes a journey on a quest, and his goal is to get home. So he's going to encounter many different gods. Now, the characteristic of an epic poetry, it is written in a narrative style, so it's told as a story. It's not like it rhymes or anything like that, but it's told like you're telling a story. And it begins actually in the middle. It begins with a prayer to Muse, the goddess of poetry. So as he's telling this story, it actually picks up right in the middle of where he has been. So Odysseus has been gone for 10 years in the Trojan War. The end result of the Trojan War kind of catapults him into this 10-year journey home. And we pick up right where he is starting to journey home. So it's a flashback, but we also provide some background information, and there is a little bit of conflict of person versus fate in the story. So the mood is very serious. Now, the greater the hero, the earlier the death. So Odysseus will encounter a lot of death in here, but he is not the main character in the Iliad, which comes prior to the Odyssey. You probably heard of the character Achilles. He is the main character in the Iliad. So you don't have to worry about that one. But they travel all over the world. But basically, this is traveling back and forth between Sparta and Troy. So the Spartans and the Trojans here. Okay, so I'm sorry, not Sparta, but Greek. So the language used is very long, almost repetitious. They have things called Homeric similes. Homeric comes from the term Homer. That's who wrote it. He was a blind prophet at the time. And basically they're expanded metaphors. And they're also called epitaphs because they basically characterize a word or phrase firmly associated with a person or a thing, like man's best friend for a dog. So you'll see that a lot when we get to Odysseus's dog. They do talk about that. So there's three types of epic poetry: primary, which is traditional. It's not written down. It's told through songs, and there's usually no author. Now, when you get to be a senior, you'll read something called Beowulf, but you won't get to that yet. We don't know who wrote Beowulf, but that's a primary epic, okay? Then we also have secondary epics. Those are composed. They are written down by an author, and they try to elevate a powerful culture. Some of them are the Odyssey. So the Odyssey is considered a secondary epic. Then you have the Iliad. There's one that comes after the Odyssey called the Aeneid. But the one that we're going to focus on, of course, is the Odyssey. So it happens before the Iliad happens before the Odyssey, which is sorry, I lost my train of thought here, is basically the epic of war. The Odyssey is the epic journey. And then the Aeneid what happens after the Odyssey. Aeneas is the character that comes into play, and he actually takes over the throne after Odysseus dies. So then we have modern epics. There's very few, but we kind of talk about them. You'll probably recognize some of them. Some of the other ones, like modern ones out there, like Star Wars is an epic as well. So let's talk about Homer for a second. The name means hostage. He is considered the first great poet of European literature and Western culture. He was believed to be blind, and there are 7 cities that actually claim that he was born there. So not a whole lot's known about Homer, but a little bit. So it is a first-person account. So it is actually talking from Odysseus's point of view. He tells the story. So there's 3 plots to it. We're actually only looking at different pieces of the Odyssey. If you read the Odyssey, it's a real thick book, but we're only going to be looking at some of the big parts of the Odyssey. Odysseus is from an island called Ithaca. So he is the king of Ithaca, and his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus, they are waiting for Odysseus to travel home after the Trojan War. So Odysseus is traveling home, and unfortunately Odysseus, his wife, and his son have to basically try to keep the throne restored to its rightful king, who is Odysseus. Now Odysseus has been gone traveling 10 years in the Trojan War. And his wife and son have to stay at home and basically try to keep people from taking over the throne of Ithaca. So if you look kind of a map here, so we talked about the Trojan War. The Trojan War happens basically in Italy here, I'm sorry, in Troy here, and they are attacked by the Greeks, and this is the Greek islands here. Okay, so that's what we're looking at in terms of that. Sorry, my 2 sons just came inside. So about the Odyssey then, again, it's named for Odysseus. He's the king of Ithaca, and his wife is the queen, and they have a son by the name of Telemachus. So the backstory of it, so prior to this long journey, Odysseus goes to fight in the Trojan War. If you know anything about the Trojan War happens when there is a beautiful woman by the name of Helen, and she is actually queen of the Greeks. Okay, so she actually travels. She is captured by one of the princes of Troy. His name is Paris. And they capture her, and basically, well, she willingly goes to Troy. Now, this guy by the name of Agamemnon, who is another prince of Troy, a prince of Greek, he travels to try to get her back. Okay, so Odysseus leaves his family to sail to Troy to recapture Helen, the wife of Menelaus, not Agamemnon. Sorry, that was my fault. So that's where we kind of leave off. So she's captured by Paris. The men arrive in Troy. Achilles tries to challenge Paris to a duel to recapture Helen, and he kind of chickens out, and he ends up fighting his brother Hector. So Achilles slays Hector, who is Paris's brother, and Paris actually ends up killing Achilles. Okay, then Helen runs away with Paris. So After the raid, though, the Trojans think it's over. They think this is great. The Greeks have returned home. They're gone. They're not going to be part of this anymore. But unfortunately, we know from the Trojan horse that it's not over yet. So what happens is the Trojan horse is Odysseus's idea. And the plan is to stick the men inside the horse and attack. The Trojan thinks it's like a peace agreement. So after the war between the Greeks and the Trojans, they kind of see this horse sitting on the beach and they think the Greeks have left. And so they start to celebrate and they think this is a peace offering. So they bring this horse inside the gates of Troy. But what they don't know is inside the gates of Troy, this horse they bring in has a bunch of Greek soldiers in it. And so at night, once everybody has partied and probably drank a little too much, they bring the horse in and the Greeks attack inside the city gates. Inside the city gates, they start to kill many soldiers, many individuals, and this is where the story kind of picks up where we left off. So the gods actually are very angry with how the Greeks handled this. And so this is why they send Odysseus on this 10-year journey. So they kill men, they kill women, they kill children. It's just a nasty, nasty scenario. If you've ever seen the movie Troy, it's the last 10 minutes of the movie that we're talking about here. So gods are not happy, especially Zeus. They think Odysseus is very deceitful, and his punishment will be now that he'll take 10 years to get home to Ithaca. Now, it's not going to be an easy 10 years. He's going to face a lot of monsters on the way. So we start off on the island of Calypso, and he's going to encounter all of these individuals / monsters on the way home. So that's pretty much our backstory here. If you have any questions with it, just go ahead and give me a holler. If I said anything that was unclear to you, just please let me know. I would be happy to help in any way I can. So I hope you guys are doing well and keep staying healthy. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.